up, so have a big moment.
All right, so for those of you joining us, this is my speech class, but also we've got our criminal justice class, we've got some composition students, and then anyone else that decides to join us. So I've known Frank since I was younger than you guys, and you're wondering, how do I know this heavy hitter in the Des Moines community? Well, this is my grandmother right here.
Great lady! Sorry.
And she would be 108 years old now if she was still alive. But she lived to 4 days short of 94. And one of the unique things about her funeral was she had several different prayers. She had an Islamic prayer, a Jewish prayer, a Catholic prayer, and Frank spoke. And interestingly, if I remember, Frank, you were in jail a couple days before that. We almost missed out on this, but we would have broken the rules and done you anyway. So anyway, my grandmother, I never met my grandfather because he died before I was born, but she went on one date after my grandpa George passed away, and she said no one else could be as fun as George, and so she ended up being widowed longer than she was married. And so to fill the time, she hung out with Frank and the Catholic Worker people. And one of the things that they like to do is they like to go causing trouble at the Offutt Air Force Base. So at her funeral, we probably displayed the cease and desist order my grandmother received. And if you keep going back there, you end up getting trespassing, and that's how Frank will talk about this. He spent 8 sessions in prison?
8 6-month beds.
There you go. My grandmother never went to prison. She decided she liked fancy jewelry too much. But, and I'll be Frank knows this, I don't necessarily agree with everything he will tell you and everything that he will say. But at the end of the day, there are not small number of people who will get a warm meal and a place to stay in the afternoon on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's a pretty good mission. And my grandmother participated in a lot of that. Also, those are my students. I get to trump Frank in this department. I've never been to prison, but I mentioned to you last spring, that I'm going to be taking some of the small claims court. But as of this morning, I'm going to get to testify in a separation proceeding, which he's never done of that either. So, yeah, kind of excited.
We can't do everything.
So, we can't do it all. Anyhow, that's my introduction. I've known Frank since I joined you guys, and Frank's going to share his message, and he's got a list of several notecards of questions for my students, and he's going to share his life story. So, here you go. Frank.
All right. What I will do is I'll reread this thing because another group of people have already come in here, just to set us off. And then I'll talk a few minutes, hopefully. And then I'm going to go right to these questions this most current class that came in wrote me. And we'll see where it goes. So for the bases again, and a repeat for the criminal folks. Frank Cordaro is a former Catholic priest and the co-founder of the Des Moines Catholic Worker in 1976. Now, the Des Moines Catholic Worker is a ecumenical, interfaith, nonviolent, anarchist Catholic worker community living in voluntary poverty, intentional community, serving the poor and the needy. Cordaro has also served 6 years of jail time for nonviolent civil disobedience over the years, which includes 8 separate 6-month sentences for crossing the line at Offutt Air Force Base over a 30-year span. Cordaro has also participated in the May 1998 God's Medal Plowshare's Witness, where he and 4 others hammered on a B52 Bomber at Ankeny Air Force Base. Cordaro believes any fair reading of the New Testament would see Jesus and his followers were not pro-rich. They were not pro-war. They were not pro-Roman Empire. That loving your enemy means you can't kill them. Let's repeat that because it doesn't seem to cross over. Loving your enemy means automatically you can't kill them. Okay, should be simple. I don't know. And that doing the works of mercy, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, housing the homeless, welcoming the stranger, I didn't have that in there, but it should be, is what following Jesus is all about. Now, the way I get to do that is I've been living in this intentional community, except for the time I was a priest, which was a interpret of 19 years, for the last, well, we're going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary in a couple years. And we literally do feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, because we have set up a place where we can do that at a personal level. And we beg for everything. There's no salaries in this scene. And it's a great place to come, and I want to invite every one of you to come and visit us to see if I'm telling the truth. Especially just walk through when we're open and say, I'm here to just observe, be a visitor, or maybe even volunteer. I really recommend that. From there, I'm going to jump into these questions that the class, each class, someone in the class, your class, half the class, not the criminal justice class, but the crowd who just came, folks who wrote these after I'm reading this introduction. So, please, if I mess up the names, I'm terrible at reading. Anna Simerson. Oh, hi, Anna. I'm a 20-year-old philosophy transfer major in understanding, as well as studying human minds, is extremely important to me, especially how we can help those suffering mentally and those that are ending up in the streets. So, this is your questions. What are your thoughts on the homeless affecting Des Moines to this day? Homelessness. My thoughts is there's too many homeless and not enough of us out there serving them personally, feeding them personally, housing them personally, welcoming them. We don't have enough people doing it. That's all. That would be my issue. What is your opinion of the oil pipelines being built through the Midwest? Beautiful question. There's a member in our community right now who's on loan to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. You might have heard of her. Probably not. Her name is Jessica Resnicek. She and her partner Ruby spent several months dismantling the pipeline coming through Iowa 4 years ago. The way they did it was they figured out that the pipeline, every quarter mile, they had this vent that came up to the air. These were welded things out of the pipeline into the air. And they followed them once they put them together and took a welder's thing and dismantled the air ducts. Making the oil company, they said it cost them 3 months of delay in their getting the oil thing done. Well, the upshot is that these young women are now doing serious jail time. Jess is doing 8 years. She's got 3 years down. She is a member of our community on loan to the BOP. So what about our position about the oil pipelines? They're terrible and they're destroying the planet, and they're sympathetic or symbolic of what's the problem is. Because our problem is oil. Don't kid yourself. We didn't lose that half of the, I already told you about the Iowans losing half of our soil in my lifetime. It's all about oil-based stuff. And we didn't leave good soil. It's not like we lost half of our good soil, but we still have the good stuff left. No, no, what's left is dead. You know that, don't you? Dead. From industrial agriculture. Killing the planet, dead planet. Yeah, well, we're not for oil. How do you think we can solve the food insecurity of the U.S. from your point of view? Well, again, let's listen. Small is beautiful. When I was born, there was around the same number of people in the state of Iowa as there are today. 3 million, whatever. They were all scattered in the rural areas, in decentralized places where very small farms, 200, 400 acres, cows, pigs, chickens, the whole thing, you know? It was happening here in the state after World War II. We could have kept it intact. No one saw that as a good thing. The whole scene was get big or get out. Capital and oil. Yeah. And business became a business. So, what do I think about food insecurity? Food insecurity is a problem for the world, and if the world's dependent on us to feed them, they're in a lot of trouble. So what we need to learn is to learn how to feed ourselves again, and to dismantle the corporate agriculture that's controlling the world, and try to decentralize all of our food systems where we all live locally off locally grown stuff. And that means repopulating the rural areas and depopulating the cities. That's what I would do. All right, thank you for that question. Next question. Billy Devine, culinary student. How do you feel about garlic bread? I'm a big garlic bread fan. The more buttery, the better. And if you, yeah, and so anybody has suggestions on where to get good garlic bread, let me know. All right. Katari, Bell, philosophy major. How do you feel about the state of Iowa banning homeless people from asking for money on the corners?
So, okay.
If any go to jail, they are. If any go to jail, they are no longer homeless. That's the comment. Yes.
So, my parents were talking about that a couple days ago, about like banning Iowa from asking money on the corner.
Your parents were talking about being in Iowa.
Like the topic of that, how they don't feel or they agree with Iowa that they should put people in jail if they get caught asking for money.
Oh, your parents think they should be put in jail?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but since you're,
let's just go. I'm a biblical guy, so my point of view is always going to come out of the text, and I'm really New Testament Bible. So, I mean, people point to Old Testament stuff. Well, God did this, God did that. Yeah. Well, there's a difference between the old and the new. That's why they call the new, and the old, the old. The new summates the best of the old and puts it into the flesh of Jesus. You know, the Old Testament has clear dictates about how do you handle strangers in your midst. There's one law in the books that when a town, you know, they had these towns and they had these, the main gate of the town. And the rule was that if there was anybody who was not asked to come into somebody else's house and be offered hospitality, by the time the sun goes down and people are still in that front gate area with nowhere to go, cursed to that city was. It was a sin that someone would leave someone on the streets overnight at the main center where poor people go. The idea was you take them to your home and you give them the night that they need and the food that they need. So, look, I mean, and then Jesus would never put a homeless person in jail, really? Or do we really believe